Okay, welcome back to another vid. I've got 4 Super Nintendo games and 2 games for the Megadrive. Well, one for the Genesis, but we're going to call it the Megadrive because I can't stand the word Genesis. Never have, never will, but I guess I'm going to have to get used to it. Finally. Annoyingly. Very much under duress, I tell you that. Anyway, so the first game I've got for the Genesis, Megadrive, is a classic, but it's one which is so common it's unreal. Have a guess what it is. Just think of the most common game on the Mega Drive or Genesis. Sonic the Hedgehog. Now, this is the not-for-resale version. I'm going to hazard a guess, I don't know, but just taking an educated guess, this is the one that would have came with the Genesis system. So, whether it makes it rarer or not, probably doesn't, than the standard retail version. I'm not sure, I don't really care, it doesn't bother me. I've not got to go out and get one which doesn't have that on the front now. I'm not that anal about it, it really doesn't bother me. I just really wanted the game, it's an absolute classic. I'm sure everybody's played Sonic. If you haven't, then you'll be aware of it. And if you haven't played it and you're not aware of it, you're weird. I'm sorry, there's no nice way of saying it. Get it, buy it, it's cheap. And I remember first playing it, not long after it came out, quite frankly. My cousin at the time had just moved back from America to the UK, and I remember him bringing his Genesis over, and I thought it was amazing. I really, really enjoyed Sonic. And a stack of other games he had at the time, like E-SWAT, Moonwalker, Kid Chameleon, Altered Beast, a load of others. So, yeah, Sonic the Hedgehog brings back good memories, not just of that, but of that time in general. The most nostalgic part of my childhood, I guess that late 80s, early 90s is my kind of era. So really pleased to get Sonic back for the first time in many, many years. And the thing that made me laugh, or one of the things that made me laugh about this is a YouTuber, Adam Interghost, left a comment on a video I must have made probably the best part of 3 years ago, maybe more. It was, I don't know if anyone took part in it, if you remember it at the time, if you were on YouTube at the time. It was Jurassic Junkie. Where's he gone, by the way? Is he still around? I'd laugh if he made a video yesterday and I'm asking where he is. Not seen one of his vids for ages. But yeah, he made a challenge vid to try and get the fastest time on the first level. What's it called? Like Emerald Hill? What's it called? Something like that. Green Hill? I think it's Green Hill. Whatever it's called. And I uploaded my video, and I think I've got a pretty decent time. It wasn't the fastest, but it was one of the fastest. And Adam Interghost, another YouTuber, left a comment on that like 3 or 4 year old video the other day, and he was saying, I can't remember what he said actually, but he left a comment. But it made me laugh how he was watching such an old vid. It's crazy, but it just goes to show, doesn't it, that we put these videos out and we think they're going to be watched, in the here and now, within like a week or 2 or 3 or whatever. But really, when we put a video onto YouTube, unless we remove it, then it's going to stay there potentially forever. Not just on YouTube, it's going out there on the internet. So we all say, welcome back, or cold January morning or whatever. But you could be watching this in September, 50 years from now, or 1,000,000 years from now. It's kind of weird when you think about it. Well, I think it is anyway. So yeah, really, really pleased to get that. It's a classic, it's common, it's cheap, but I had to get it. Now, I've got a Megadrive game here. Now, my stance on the Mega Drive and the Genesis has softened over the years. You'll all know about my obsession with PAL because of nostalgia, the multicoloured spines and the box, all that kind of stuff. I'm very much a PAL guy. I know the games are slower, they've got the borders, it doesn't bother me. It didn't bother me then, it doesn't bother me now. But simply because of logistics, and I've touched upon this before, so I'm not going to dwell on it, because of logistics and the price, and a number of other factors really, it's much easier for me to get American games. So I'm slightly turning it around a little bit, and the priority is American games, but I will still buy PAL games when the game that I want comes up for auction at a great price. I will still get it. And this came up the other day on eBay.com, American eBay, for a PAL game. It's Megalomania, strange kind of box out there, and like a god game, think like a Power Monger or Populous. And it came up for $5, and I thought that's a really good price. Excuse me again. Always cough on these bloody vids. It's ridiculous. I just think it's out of the loop, out of practice. And also not having a drink handy. That never helps. So, yeah, really, really pleased to get this. It's boxed complete, all that kind of stuff. And, yeah, pleased to have it. I used to have it on the Atari ST back in the day. So, really pleased to get it on the Mega Drive. Not yet put it on, but it's going to be the same game. But just, I'm guessing, probably a lot more difficult to control because you haven't got a mouse. So that's probably going to be interesting to see what it's like. More annoyingly, these Mega Drive games, I must have probably 6 or 7 Mega Drive games that I've bought in America now, and none of them, apart from one actually, have got the hang tab. What the bloody hell's going on? Why do people tear off the hang tab? Keep it on. Seriously. So, the Super Nintendo games, I've got 4 altogether. I've kind of got 5 on the pile, but one's kind of a prop, which you'll see in a second. But I've bought 4. They're all American games, the ones that I bought. The one which I'm going to show you in a second is PAL. Again, it'll make sense in a second. And yeah, the same situation with American games in America for me. It's much easier, it's much cheaper, but when I get an opportunity to buy a PAL SNES game in great condition at a fantastic price, I will get it. Long term, the goal is still PAL. I'm still weird that way, but I've just softened my weirdness. So it's going to be American games. It's going to be the main focus, if you like. But hovering in the background will always be PAL. So that's that. So the first game, and I've got the PAL game handy as a prop, is Street Fighter 2, but the American game which I bought, because I think I showed this a few weeks or a few months back, the American game I bought is Street Fighter 2 Turbo. Again, as I always say, apologies for the reflections, if you can see it, the light, all the rest of it. I will kind of change this whole setup around again. It's a long story, I'll go into it, in the future, but I had to kind of move things out and moving things around, all the rest of it. But I think I'll be moving that old sofa, or the sofa bed, back in here, with like the British and American flags on. It was a better setup, but you don't need to know that, and if you do, I'll talk about it another time. But yeah, really, really pleased to get this. Street Fighter 2 is a classic game, and I bought this one, the PAL game, a few months ago, like I say, and it's in amazing condition in one of these Sentinel box cases, as all these SNES games are, actually. Basically, Street Fighter 2 Turbo is pretty much Street Fighter 2, but just faster. The speed is cranked up a few notches, and you get to play as the bosses this time, so we're talking like M. Bison and Vega and whoever else for that matter. So it's a nice addition. But basically, for all intents and purposes, it's pretty much the same game, just a faster version. But I'm really, really pleased to get it. It's such a game which is synonymous with my youth, both Street Fighter 2 and Street Fighter 2 Turbo, and I absolutely adore them. There is an argument to say that they are my favourite games, or Street Fighter 2 is my favourite game of all time. There's many, many games I love, but I think Street Fighter 2, not just because of the fact that it was a great game and still is a great game, but the memories that go with it, the anticipation, waiting for it to come out, playing it in the arcades, really looking forward to getting a Super Nintendo, basically because of Street Fighter 2. It's just, it's got great memories and it's a fantastic game. Right, next up, which isn't so much a fantastic game. In fact, the next 2 aren't that great, in all honesty. But I will persevere with them because, one of them especially is meant to be quite good, and that's this one, or at least so, from the people I've spoken to, they say it's pretty good. It's WWF Raw. Now, I was kind of into my wrestling back in the very early 90s, 1990, 91, 92. But after that, I kind of lost interest. Now, by the time this came out, which, according to the box, was 1994, I wasn't really watching wrestling. I mean, I was still at school, so I was, I knew of it. I guess I was watching it every now and again. But really, the very early 90s were my main kind of wrestling, was the main time when I was into it, I guess. Let's phrase it that way. So this is, I put it on. Now, there's quite a few characters at the back, as you can see on there. All the classics, The Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, Bret the Hitman Hart, and all that kind of stuff. Is Shawn Michaels on there, actually? Oh, yeah, he is on there. The Undertaker, Owen Hart, Doink the Clown, etc., etc. I put it on, and it's all right. It's what I expected. It's what I remember, not from this particular game, but similar 2D fighting games, wrestling games, that I would have played back in the early mid-90s. But I just found it slightly, not so much unresponsive. I don't know. I guess I've only played one game mode so far, and it was a Royal Rumble, and I guess the ring is going to get congested. There's a lot of people in there, and it didn't really feel as if I was free. I didn't have a lot of freedom to move around because there was always someone in there. So maybe that wasn't the best introduction to the game. Maybe I shouldn't be too harsh on it. But typically, it's just a wrestling game. What more do you expect other than it's a 2D one? And it's meant to be pretty good from what I've heard. I will persevere, like I say. I am pleased to get it. It wasn't very expensive. But yeah, first impressions, just playing the Royal Rumble, I didn't think it was that great, to be honest. Now, the next one, which isn't amazingly great, but I like it in a cheesy way. It's called Super Soccer Champ, the arcade hit, apparently. Now, it says the arcade hit. Maybe the actual arcade machine was called Super Soccer Champ, I'm not sure. It's basically Super Sidekicks, if anyone remembers that one, from the Neo Geo. A lot of football games from that era look the same. They had the kind of the breakaways, the cutscenes, I should say, when like someone got sent off, it would focus on the referee handing a card and the player kind of going ballistic, or the ball going in the back of the net and the crowd roaring, the player running across. All them cutscenes were in a load of games back in the early 90s. It's a decent game. It plays pretty average, but it's fun. It's quite, it's got quite an elaborate control scheme, really. Not so much in the obvious buttons like pass and shoot. That's kind of obvious what you do there. But in terms of pressing the button at a certain time, you can juggle the ball, diving header, overhead kick, all that kind of stuff. So it's all right. It's been done a million times before. It's a cheap and cheerful game. I think it was the best part of $15, if that, to be maybe $20 including shipping. Really good condition. And I may do a gameplay. I may do a gameplay of all of these. That's kind of the intention, because I do have 3, to my knowledge, SNES gameplays on my channel. That's Realm, Demon's Crest, and Knights of the Round. That's 3 really good ones, to be fair. So maybe doing something like this would be a bit of a come down, after doing 3 really good games. But yeah, Soccer Champ or Super Soccer Champ is a good game. Really pleased to have it. And last up but not least on the Super Nintendo is a game that I played back in the day. I remember where I was at the time. It was a friend of mine called Luke, and I remember we were outside the science lab getting ready to, or opposite the science lab, getting ready to go into class. And we were talking about the SNES. It would have been very early to mid 1992. I think at the time, because I had my Atari ST, I had so many games for the ST. I didn't have that many for the SNES because the carts were so expensive. So, I just had a few every now and again. Christmas, birthday, maybe pocket money, save up, all that kind of stuff. But I hardly had any games. All my games, basically, were copied games on the ST and some originals on the Amstrad. Like most of us had back then. You just copied games. It was just the way it was. So I remember we were standing there in line, and I was saying what games I had for the SNES, like Super Star Wars and Super Scope stuff and whatever else. I had Street Fighter 2, Super Soccer, Super Tennis. And he went, "Oh, I've got Rival Turf." And I'd heard of it. I think I must have seen it like, I don't know, Super Play or CMVG. I'd seen it somewhere, like scrolling beat 'em up. I thought, I've got to get that. Spoiler there, what it is. Look, by the way, check that out. For the worst ever, if you can see it, the worst ever artwork. Now, the PAL artwork is a lot better. It really is, but that is bloody diabolical. But it's funny. Diabolical, but funny. But yeah, so we were there standing outside, and he went, "I've got Rival Turf. I've played it a little bit bored." And I thought, I've got to borrow it. Lend it to me. And I think I lent him like, maybe it was like Super Soccer. I can't even remember. But I know he lent me this. And I had it for the best part of a couple of weeks, and I absolutely loved it. It's just a standard side-scrolling 2D fighter, basically, beat 'em up. But it's really fun, and I love these kind of games. Anything which involves smacking a few skulls, side-scrolling variety, I'm into. So really pleased to buy it. It was the best part of, I think, around about $30, $35, but it is in fantastic condition. Although, when it arrived, where is it? Which side? I was kind of a little bit annoyed. Can you see? Well, of course you can see. It's under the R and the logo there on the, there we go, on that hand side. It's a bit of a mess. It was not there, it was not advertised like that. Obviously the seller kind of showed a picture like that, and then he must have showed that side. But do you know what? I don't mind. It doesn't really bother me, because at the end of the day, it's very minor. And, to be honest, if you were going to face it that way on the shelf, you could just flip it around and do it that way. It's the same bloody thing. So it doesn't really matter. Other than that, it's in really, really good condition. So, Rival Turf is one of my favourite games, nostalgically, for the SNES. There's loads, to be honest. Loads of nostalgic games, but Rival Turf, even with, there we go, dodgy artwork, is still a brilliant game. So, there we are. Short and sweet, relatively speaking. 6 games altogether, 4 for the SNES, 2 for the Megadrive. Absolutely delighted to get them. And the collection's, it's kind of expanding. I think I've got, I don't know, maybe about 8 now. 8 games. I know, not a lot, obviously, but 8 or 9 games for the American Super NES. So really pleased. I've probably got 7 or 8 Genesis, 7 or 8 Megadrive games, maybe 3 or 4 Genesis games. But yeah, the collection will expand, and that's somewhere, or something I want to do as the year unfolds. I want 2016 basically to be the year that I really get back into the SNES and really get back into the Mega Drive. I'm obviously still going to buy other stuff. I've got the Need for Speed in the background there on the PlayStation 4. I did download it, so I know that's a contentious issue for a lot of people, but it was $9. That's about £6 for the full game with all the DLC, but maybe I'll save that for another vid in the future because I bought a few other digital games as well, and I know some people will be frothing at the mouth with that. But honestly, when you hear the prices, they're just mental. They're mentally cheap, and I just had to do it. And going forward, I probably will get the physical release as well, because I'm a little bit weird like that. But $9 for that game, full game, all DLC, couldn't resist. So anyway, as I keep saying, there's the games for this particular vid, along with some light reflection. Thanks for watching, and until my next vid, then I'll see you later. Take it easy.